So yesterday we posted a video about our reaction to a particular girl who was stopped at the side of the road, and there's been a whole bunch of comments about kind of what I said in regards to the scope creep of an investigation. And so took what everybody said really seriously and talked to some judges that I know, and Greg Colavecchia here is another lawyer at our office who's very experienced criminal defense lawyer himself, former prosecutor, and we got out the book. And so we're in New York. What I can say is some of the states have different laws, and New York's probably a little more strictly interpreted what the Constitution has said. Everybody is subject to the Constitution and the federal laws. So, Greg, we've been talking about this all morning, but the situation is girl gets pulled over, says, police officer asks, mind if I search the car? And they then end up searching her purse. Is that allowed?
Yeah, so consent searches are tested on the standard of objective reasonableness. Basically what that means is, would a reasonable person in her shoes expect that by consenting to search the car, they would also search other areas within the car, whether it's a purse, a suitcase, a book bag, and it's based upon objective reasonableness. And I think in each situation, you have to look at what words were actually spoken. What did the officer ask, and what did the person respond with? So if there's, in New York, this has been decided, if a police officer says, may I look in the car, that does not give the police officer consent to search underneath the seats or inside luggage. That's a 4th Department Appellate Division case from New York. If the language from the officer is more broad in scope, it can be interpreted differently. So it all depends on what language is actually spoken, what's the question, what's the answer, and what would a reasonable person expect to take place when the officer asks to do something.
And what was the quote, the Court of Appeals? The Court of Appeals is the highest court in New York State, and they give some kind of 30,000 foot level when judges are interpreting whether or not consent is valid.
Right. The Court of Appeals has said that when you look for consent searches and whether they're truly consent searches, you have to make sure that they are inherently voluntary, right? Not subject to any coercion, whether subtle or implicit. There's a case from the Court of Appeals about an individual who was on the side of the road on a kind of desolate highway. Not many people are around. She's approached by 2 state troopers on the highway who ask if they can search her vehicle. And the court said, well, that is coercion by its very nature. The request in that particular situation, you take a lot of factors into consideration. The person who is giving consent, do they have any experience dealing with police officers? What other type of investigation is going on? Were they pulled over for something? Were they just simply broken down on the highway? There's a number of factors that can be taken into consideration, but at the end of the day, consent has to be free of any coercion, whether subtle, implied, actual. Obviously, the safest situation in all of these cases is to get a warrant. But in order to get a warrant, the police have to have probable cause to get a warrant. A lot of times, consent searches are obtained because the police just want to look around.
Yeah. In this situation, if they want to increase the scope of the consent, they see a purse, they want to search the purse. There's nothing that says, hey, do you mind if I search the purse as well? The owner of that purse is certainly willing or is able to consent if they choose to.
Sure. I mean, in a perfect world, this is not even an issue if consent is specifically asked for each particular area. When they ask to search the vehicle, it's to search the vehicle. If they find an item within the vehicle, like a purse or a book bag, there's nothing stopping them from asking, can I search your purse as well?
The law is also really clear if there are locked portions of the vehicle in New York State. For example, a locked glove box, the locked trunk, or a locked suitcase, something that is locked, you have to get a warrant for that. The consent to search doesn't cover that in a vehicle in most circumstances. There are also some cases that say if you get consent to search the vehicle, you can't pry open the gas tank and search the inside of the gas tank. That was a specific case where they found cocaine inside a gas tank.
Yeah, and I think that plainly goes back to the objective reasonableness standard. If you give consent to search your vehicle, I don't think any reasonable person would believe that they're giving consent for the police to take apart their vehicle or to take apart their dashboard or to search within the underneath areas of the vehicle.
Yeah, there's one crazy case that comes out the other way where they give consent to search the vehicle and they remove the center console of the car, locating drugs underneath. And it looked like the police officer was able to see that the screws had been broken, so they had a clue that somebody had been lifting that center console up and down. That's a little of an outlier. That was the one case that I thought was weird, but generally speaking, I think it's to take it away, it's whatever a reasonable person would believe they are consenting to.
Exactly. And it'd be up to the judge.